Okay, happy Donkey Kong Day, everyone. I can't believe it's only been a month since the Donkey Kong Bananza Direct. Before watching it, I was a little apprehensive and not at all sure, but afterwards I was a complete convert. Like, literally could not be more excited. My most anticipated game in a decade or more. Well, I got the game yesterday evening and I've been awake all night playing, and I had to really work hard to tear myself away from it to make this first impressions review and hopefully have it go live in time for the release date, depending on my internet speeds and YouTube's ever reliable processing and approval times. I am already obsessed. I actually plan on breaking this review into like 6 or 7 full-length episodes to really deep dive and cover everything, because I kid you not, so far this is a candidate for my favourite game of quite literally all time. Yes, above any Sonic game, even any Mario game. It's that good, and at the very least it is a 10 out of 10. And in my entire time reviewing games professionally, or at least semi-professionally, since the late 90s, I'm not sure that I've ever actually given a 10 out of 10 before. But from what I've played so far, it's as close to perfect as I can imagine a 3D platformer ever being. And for those new here, just finding it through search or the algorithm, I am far from a Nintendo glazer. The majority of videos I've made on this channel so far have actually been pretty negative, and I didn't even include Mario Kart World in my top 10 games for the Switch 2 a few episodes ago. But this is different. Even if there is never another good game released for the system, this justifies the price of entry. I would have bought the console just for this title alone. To summarize then, this ish is Bananza, Bananza, and in my Bastille Day episode, I made a joke that whenever I sing in these introductions, everyone stops listening and clicks away, and then I proceeded to make an entire music video in French, in an English language podcast. Now, depending on where you were listening to this episode, it's quite possible that this goes live before the French one, especially on YouTube, because I got a copyright claim and I had to re-upload it with a different backing track. So if you're waiting on it, merci pour votre compréhension. But I did upload the music video separately to YouTube, and in less than 24 hours, it has more watch time for a 4-minute video than pretty much every one of my hour-long episodes, but almost no comments. So what that tells me is that there is a handful of you that are blasting it on repeat. I find that endlessly amusing, so thank you. If you want an MP3, drop by our free members area and let me know. I'll be happy to oblige your rather eclectic taste in badly pronounced French language parodies. But no more singing. Donkey Kong Bananza. Tell me more, tell me more. Did I get very far? Tell me more, tell me more. Like, does he have minecart? The skies are sandy. Oh, these summer nights are going to be fun with the DK crew. Can I get through this first impressions review without doing the DK rap? Find out after I quickly read the podcast intro. And if you're a regular listener who skips the intros, I forgive you. We good, homie. Just drop a like and comment first, yeah? KP, sorted, peanuts. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Daily Switch 2, a podcast covering everything related to the Nintendo Switch 2, with at least one new episode or video uploaded per day to YouTube, Spotify, and your favourite major platforms. My name is Sam, and I've been a gamer since the 1980s. I've worked in the entertainment industry since I was a teenager, including as a games journalist, producer of gaming documentaries and shows, and I'm even programming multiple indie video games, including 4, which will be released on the Switch and hopefully Switch 2, so be sure to subscribe and follow the show for the world-exclusive news on those as they drop. However, I'm a gamer and a Nintendo fan at heart, and this podcast is purely a passion project for me to talk about the stuff that interests and excites me about this new system. It is not monetized or funded by any entity. It's completely unofficial and unbiased so that I can give my full, frank, honest opinions. So if you want to support me or just find out the best places to get these free daily episodes, or join our free members area where you can talk to me and leave suggestions and take part in monthly free giveaways to win official official Nintendo prizes. All links are in the bio and at linktree/dailyswitch2. That's linktr.ee/dailyswitch2. Thank you so much. And back to the episode. So we're finally here. I'm reviewing it for you. If you have a Switch 2, you can join in too. Put your Joy-Cons together if you want to play, as I'll take you through this monkey's game, DK, Donkey Kong Bananza. So, for context, what is my history with Donkey Kong? Well, him and I go back a long way. In fact, don't tell any of my potential suitors, clearly trying to gather the courage to DM Slider basketball after the jump scare face reveal in my last video. But we were actually born in the same year, me and DK. I'm sure you already know this, but DK is the OG of Nintendo OGs. Mario and Pauline may have debuted in the exact same game, but neither were deemed important enough at the time to give them a real name. Jumpman and Lady were no match for Donkey Kong, the true star for Nintendo, the Universal movie copyright-baiting character who would break them out of Japan and into the American market for good, with Atari, Coleco, and Intellivision all fighting over who would release the least terrible home port of the #1 arcade smash before the entire US manufactured console market collapsed. And Nintendo swept in and reinvented the entire industry with the NES, not forgetting that the Famicom itself was designed from the ground up specifically to be a machine solely to play the most accurate home conversion of Donkey Kong possible. Without Donkey Kong, there is quite simply no Mario, no Zelda, no Miyamoto, no NES, and Nintendo would still be manufacturing gambling equipment and running brothels. Watch the, well, actually, guys appear in the comments. I see you, it's all engagement, no worries. And to further annoy the Nintendo diehards who like to rewrite history, a few years later, the Super Nintendo was floundering and being consistently outsold 3 years in a row by arch-rivals Sega, and surveys at the time proved that the new generation of kids were more likely to recognize Sonic than Mario. How did Nintendo turn their fortunes around and eventually win the console wars of that generation? Well, partially because of Street Fighter 2, partially because of Star Fox, a British game, you're welcome, from the team who also taught Nintendo how to make 3D games and directly enabled the creation of Mario 64 before having their Yoshi game rejected and defecting to Sony and Sega. Thanks for nothing, I guess. But the game that really tabled the turns and scaled the flip was none other than Donkey Kong Country, another British-developed game by the team who later saved the N64 before being stabbed in the back by Nintendo. I'm noticing a pattern here. What do they have against British people? But while I may have preloaded that paragraph with provocation and principled penalization, yeah, that'll do. I'm only doing so because I'm about to glaze Nintendo's donut so hard that Nintendo will have to fight off 1 million Canadian singers who hate Americans and hate America seemingly like Nintendo do. Pull yourself an Ariana Banana Grande because I have a latte to say. Cards on the table. I'm one of those people that actually was a Sega and Sonic ride or die, but I bought a SNES for DKC and holy crap, it was a great game on a great console. The sequel was even better, of course, and the third one was also great, but I'll only admit that on days when I can get over the annoyance of how much I irrationally hate Kiddy Kong. I think l'époque je déteste les bébés because I even found the sublime Yoshi's Island difficult to play because Baby Mario sucks donkey balls. Donkey Kong balls. Banana-flavored, one presumes. I wouldn't know. But anyway, the DKC game, incredible. And Returns was good too. And Tropical Freeze might just be the best platform game on Switch. Yes, better than Mario Odyssey. Come at me, bro. My only complaint is the fact that it was $20 on Wii U and then $60 on Switch, but screw us for wanting to play portably more than 6 foot away from the console, I guess. Funky Mode made it totally worth it though, of course. I also bought an original DMG Game Boy back in the day too. Not for Mario, not for Tetris, but because my parents wouldn't let me play Mortal Kombat on our massive 14-inch CRT color television with red-colored blood, because all that violence would clearly warp my fragile little mind, but ripping out people's spines on the pea-soup-colored postage stamp was deemed okay. So my Game Boy, weirdly, was originally a Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 machine, until I picked up Donkey Kong Kong 94 and had a religious experience. For those that haven't played that game and assume that it's just a monochrome port of an arcade game that's as ancient as your humble host, again, ladies, please ignore that I said that if you are single and not entirely repulsed by the aforementioned parody music video and won over by my entirely convincing accent français. But yes, if you haven't played Donkey Kong 94, drop everything and play that game. It's in my top 10 games ever, probably top 5. Easily the best Donkey Kong game, and even potentially the best 2D Mario game of my life. Or to quote The Simpsons for the second time this week, easily the best Donkey Kong game and even potentially best 2D Mario game of my life so far. Because here we are, DK Bananza, Donkey Kong Bananza. It's like banana, but bonanza and banana. Get it? DK Bananza. My favourite game of all time is Nights into Dreams. My second favourite game of all time is Mario 64. 2 3D platform games. And it's quite possible that in a week or two I'll have changed my mind and crowned Bananza the best game ever made. I've only played for a day or so, but so far it really is that good. Those of you that regularly listen to my mad rambles, thank you, by the way. I'm glad that at least a handful of people don't find my attempts at humour completely off-putting. You may have observed that in several of my episodes after the Direct, I've said something along the lines of Donkey Kong episode tomorrow, and then they never came. I'm sorry to leave you with blue bananas, but we had more and more crazy news stories and date-specific events getting in the way of my schedule. But that's also somewhat of an excuse. You see, after the Direct, I was so pumped that my very much literally autistic ass spent hours scribbling away notes for a multitude of hour-long essays that I wanted to make, analysing every single second of the Direct and why I was so excited about the game. I even recorded several full episodes, but I didn't listen back and edit them down yet because I started to get a growing feeling of fairly extreme anxiety around the game. What if it turned out to be a disappointment and all my hopes were shattered and my excitement and brand loyalty wasted? Frankly, there's a reason that I haven't made any more Mario Kart World videos recently. I was so hyped for that game, and it is a good game, but the mild disappointment I have about it makes it hard to make videos without dwelling on the negative aspects. And especially with the Switch 2 having so many issues with pricing, keycards, hardware, etc., I was fearful that if Donkey Kong Bananza wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, I might end up just getting so disillusioned with the whole system that I would just give up on this podcast and perhaps Nintendo entirely. Thankfully, that is not the case. So, was all my time scribbling notes like the dude out of a beautiful mind and recording hours of unreleased podcast episodes wasted? Well, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, yes, this is a video game podcast, not the epoch-defining complete works of Alizé Jacoti, mais par contre, for those that were excited to hear my thoughts, no, this time wasn't wasted at all. You see, like Baldric, I have a cunning pain. Today is my first impressions review video, a mini review after playing it for the first day, but in somewhere between a week or a month, depending on exactly how far down the rabbit hole this game leads this proverbial Alice, I will repurpose those notes and recordings to make multiple full-length breakdowns of important areas of Nintendo's Wonderland to analyse. If you want real deep dives into absolutely everything, subscribe, ring the bell, do whatever you need to do to not miss a second of my hyper-focusing to the point where it would be potentially concerning if I didn't have the excuse of being the host of a podcast about this very subject. And if you want to support the show so that I can at least vaguely pretend that this is a professional pursuit, that's very kind of you, and I appreciate it very much. Linktree/DailySwitch2, linktr.ee/DailySwitch2. We have a free members area too, which includes entry to our monthly competitions to win official Nintendo prizes. This month, it's 3 really cool bits of Nintendo stationery, plus really neat little figurines of Mario, Luigi, and a cheap to put on your Minecraft rucksack, skibbity toilet lunchbox, Piper Raquel, pencil case, or whatever the kids are into nowadays. I just saw that documentary, by the way. Jesus Christ, I'm glad my own kids grew up before social media became what it is nowadays. That girl, oh my God, I feel so sorry for her. I'm sorry, I know I'm rambling a lot. It's partially because I haven't slept. I've been playing Donkey Kong. That's more important. But it's also because I'm so freaking hyped. But to get to the meat and potatoes, or bananas, I guess, of this video, let's break the summary of first thoughts into the rough sections that I will eventually break down into separate full-length episodes for those that want to indulge me in my descent into madness. Here's the sections I think we should probably cover in this video: the controls of DK himself and Pauline by extension, gameplay, feel, moveset, etc. The story and lore, the levels and characters. Don't worry, no spoilers here. We'll do a full breakdown in later videos, just a quick overview. The presentation, graphics, animation, and music. The main gameplay loop, post-game, extra modes, any performance or technical notes. Then finally, how does this game stack up against other 3D platformers? Is it the killer app for Switch 2? So I guess that's the rough plan. Let's see if I can stick to it without too many tangents. For those that haven't noticed, by the way, I always put very detailed timestamps in the description and pinned comments, assuming that the platform that you're listening on supports them. So, the first thing that I noticed when first booting up the game was just how well DK controls. It's weird. You'd think the first thing that would stand out to me is the stunning graphics, and we will get to them, but I guess I already knew the graphics were stunningly good, but what I wasn't prepared for was just how good it would feel once I was actually controlling them in real time. It sent me right back to 1995 when I first saw Violet Berlin playing the Shoshinkai Floor preview of Mario 64, and I fell in love with the game. Also fell in love with Violet Berlin, by the way, and I've recently worked with her, and I've got to say she's absolutely lovely. For those of you who know who she is, people in the UK of a certain age will definitely know Violet Berlin. But anyway, I had to wait 2 whole years after watching that preview before the game finally released in the UK, and I picked it up on launch day. Then, after all that time imagining what it would be like to play, staring at screenshots and wearing out VHS tapes of gameplay that I had, suddenly actually holding the controller in my hand and moving Mario around for myself was actually a surreal experience. To this day, I've always claimed that Mario 64 is simply the best controlling 3D platformer. Obviously not talking about the camera, just controlling Mario. Sure, I love many 3D Sonic games, Banjo-Kazooie, Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, Astrobot. I even love the tank controls of the original Croc and triangle-boobed Tomb Raider. No idea why I censored myself and didn't go with the obvious alliteration there. I guess I'm just classy like that. To the 9% or so of my audience that are non-male, you are welcome. Clearly I'm not as misogynistic as the aforementioned music video may have led you to believe. Sorry about that. I mean, I'm not sorry. She's an institution. C'est pas ma faute. But out of all the incredible 3D platform games that I've played and loved since that day, for my money, none of the characters ever controlled quite as perfectly as Mario did in his first 3D outing. Even Sunshine, Galaxy, and Odyssey, all excellent titles, don't have quite the same weight and one-to-one feeling that I get with Mario 64. They feel more like I'm learning the controls and then perfecting movesets to pull off tricks, like perfecting a Tony Hawk's or SSX game, and that can be really cool in itself. In fact, that's the precise reason Nights into Dreams is my favourite game. But in Mario 64, I don't feel like I'm playing Mario, I feel like I actually am Mario. And that is the exact reason why, even though I have replayed that game at least once a year since it came out, I have never thrown the baby penguin off the cliff edge in front of his own mother. Not once. Mind you, I also never locked the butler in the walk-in fridge of Croft Manor. You guys are monsters. So, yeah, I thought I'd never experienced that feeling again. Perhaps it was nostalgia or bias because it was the first 3D platformer that I ever played, or simply the fact that I waited an entire 2 years to play that game, suffering through countless delays while those around me played their new PlayStations. With Donkey Kong Bananza, I've only been waiting a month or so to try it out, and hell, at my age, a month passed in what would have felt like a weekend to the Sam of the mid-90s. But damn, Donkey Kong has smashed it along with everything else. Sure, it's got the elements of games like Mario Odyssey, where there are ever more complicated moves and tricks to master, and this will become a truly acrobatic speedrunning parkour experience in the way that Mario Kart World wants to happen but could never. So It's not a simple or basic moveset, but what it does do is get the basics right. Like, exactly right. Like, the most right of any game in the last 28 years or so. And the fact that it's been that long since the glorious ride home from Toys R Us staring in disbelief at the N64 in my lap while my dad drove us home is insane. My kids are significantly older than I was on that day. Time slips away, and it is precious. So to any young ones listening to this, don't waste it. And I promise that playing Donkey Kong Bananza won't be a waste. This is a once-in-a-generation game, maybe once in a lifetime. It is that good, in my opinion. We could get into the full moveset, but frankly, I want to do a whole video as there's so much to cover that it could take an hour or more breaking it all down. I'll just quickly say that if you have any lingering fears that Pauline's singing or the animal transformations or even the destruction and building mechanics themselves could be unneeded complications or distractions from the core gameplay and become divisive gimmicks like the flood, the second player and Double Dash, the sailing and Wind Waker, bloody hell, people are going to think I hate the GameCube. No, I don't. Again, day one. It's just these things were divisive from the start and not everyone loves them. Or indeed underused and seemingly tacked on everything but the kitchen sink approaches like many of the features of Mario Kart World. Nah, I didn't find that at all. Everything here works well. And as a game dev myself, I really admire how well thought out and polished everything is here. From what I've played so far, this is far more cohesive experience than even Mario Odyssey. There, I said it. I know this is from the same team and Odyssey was a quality game, but I'm from the same Mandela Effect universe as Arlo, and that game was always divisive. With this game, I confidently predict that it will be the best reviewed Nintendo platform game since, what, Super Mario Bros. 3? I'm not even kidding there. And speaking of Odyssey, let's briefly get into the plot. No spoilers here, but clearly this is a prequel to Mario Odyssey, explaining why Pauline loves Donkey Kong so much that she named an entire city and multiple streets after him, despite us previously thinking that he kidnapped her. I'm much happier having Pauline rewritten to have DK as a father figure and mentor rather than some kind of awkward Stockholm syndrome with a Sonic and Princess Elise-style bestiality undertone implication. Let's not forget that Donkey Kong was originally based on King Kong, the ape that falls in love with a human woman, kidnaps her, and she eventually falls in love with him. I think rewriting Pauline as a preteen that DK protects and trains, eventually learning to work as a team with her growing to become strong and independent because of her father figure is a much more pleasing setup. And any adult, whether male, female, or otherwise, will gel with the want to both protect and train Pauline. She's adorable and completely endearing. It was a good call to make her female. Without getting into gender politics or pseudoscience, most men will be more inclined to attach themselves to wanting to train and protect the young girl, rather than potentially finding the needy young boy annoying. There is a reason that many male gamers of a certain age cite The Last of Us as their favourite game, and maybe Leon as their first movie, or The Professional, as it was known in America in the 90s. And it's a common trope in media, especially from Japan, but obviously not exclusively, to have a young female character to tag along for the male isekai protagonist. It's an easy storytelling shortcut for the mostly male audience to break down their patriarchal emotional barriers and care about the plot. And of course, it works well for non-males too. And when I say plot, I mean story, and vehemently not plot in inverted commas in the anime sense. Of course, these dynamics do always risk a small percentage of people making it weird, and Pauline being barefoot, it works well to make her appearance vulnerable and innocent, but again, it was a slightly risky choice for a percentage of the mostly anonymous internet, but I really hope that anyone with those kinds of inclinations keeps them completely to themselves, and for once, I'd encourage you not to share your thoughts in the comments. And while I don't believe in censorship, to me, a young Pauline brings out the protective father instinct in a way that will probably make me delete anyone who tries to make edgy 4chan style jokes below the line. Nah, mate, this is not the time and place for that. This is a family show, and also the dynamic between DK and Pauline is, in my opinion, literally pitch perfect, an achievement in a world where many movies, games, anime, and manga get the balance wrong. So well done, Nintendo. I don't think they're encouraging anything unsavory. On a lighter and far less controversial note, my main plot and style fear when the very first trailers came out, pre-direct, was that with the redesign to fit the recent Mario movie rather than Donkey Kong Country, was that Nintendo were trying to move away from what Rare created back in '94. When Diddy Kong wasn't even featured in Mario Kart World, boo, these fears increased. But I needn't have worried, no spoilers, but as anyone that watched the direct will know, Diddy, Dixie and Cranky Kong are all present and correct. In fact, Cranky brings with him some interesting implications. He was originally canonized as the Donkey Kong of the original arcade game, meaning he has already kidnapped adult Pauline, but in this game she's a preteen in a team with his grandson? Though the timeline was already sketchy, as in Donkey Kong 64, it tried to retcon the grandson to son. Are we to believe that Pauline and Lady, in inverted commas, are in fact different characters? Is there some Back to the Future style shenanigans going on? Again, hopefully without the weird intergenerational incestuous implications, please. This is a spoiler-free video, but again, I'll do a whole lore and plot breakdown separately, so subscribe for that if you're the kind of person like me who cares way too much about these things. But yeah, not only do the Rare-created Kongs get to remain canon, this whole game actually feels like a loving spiritual successor to Rare's platform games of both the SNES and the N64. I put Yooka Replayly in my top 10 most anticipated games in my 1 month of Switch 2 video. But honestly, DK Bananza manages to feel even more like a Rare game than even Playtonic's efforts. And they are the people that created this style in the first place. If you love, say, Banjo-Kazooie, as I do, you will find that this very much feels like a modern extension of what that game could have logically evolved into in a modern world. And it does a better job of making a 3D Donkey Kong Country than DK64 ever did. And hell, the Switch 2 doesn't even require an expansion pack. Considering Donkey Kong is a Miyamoto creation, an absolute creative genius that he is, he's also the guy who asked why Mario would even need to have a story, even in the RPGs? You'll be pleasantly surprised by the story, plots, character progression, etc. here. Again, no spoilers, but even watching the direct, many people got emotional when watching. Many, myself included, said it gave off vibes of a weepy Pixar movie. And that's not the only way it resembles Pixar. I remarked in my Mario Kart World review that one of the things that impressed me the most was the character animation, facial expressions, proper 12 principles of animation kind of stuff, not simply your typical boned video game rigs. And I said it was a shame that it was mostly wasted in a game where the camera is consistently behind the characters and they're very small on screen, and posited that in a story-based third-person game, especially with cutscenes, it would be far more impressive. Yep, I was right. No notes. These graphics are next level. Literally the most expressive and well-animated cartoon-style video game characters I have ever seen by a very long margin. Sure, something like the excellent Astrobot on PS5 may be slightly more technically impressive from a frame rate, shaders and particle simulation standpoint, and that game is really cute and visually appealing, but from a character perspective, there has never been a game even slightly as impressive as this. And I'd like to feel that I'm at least slightly qualified to talk about this, being that I'm a classically trained animator who trained with several Disney animators and with the legend Don Bluth for 2 years. And for those too young to know who that is, it's worth noting that Anne-Marie from All Dogs Go to Heaven is still seen as a benchmark of how to animate little human girls, used frequently as a reference in both Disney and Pixar to this day, and was used as the original reference point for Lilo in Lilo and Stitch. So for me to say that Pauline is of that kind of level is really saying something. And frankly, the creators of the early Pixar and DreamWorks movies would have killed to have animation tech this good. And the fact that it's running at full speed, rather than taking literal hours to render each frame, would have blown their minds, as it would have done mine at the time. If you want a Corridor Crew Animators React style video breaking down why it's so good, let me know in the comments. I don't know if that's too niche for my video game audience, though gamers will probably also know Don Bluth from Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, and of course, would I be able to resist the urge to put Daphne or Kimmy in the thumbnails? Who knows, probably not. The other presentation is top-notch too. The environments look great, and despite the fact that pretty much everything can be destroyed or built upon in an open-world-ish way, the environments don't have any of the problems of Mario Kart World, or even some of the areas of Mario Odyssey, where things feel empty, bland, or unfinished. No, every inch of these levels feels tweaked and designed by hand to perfection. Even though you have the freedom to completely destroy everything or build your own paths, and to begin with, it's such a novelty that you will waste hours experimenting, you'll find that eventually you want to play the levels as intended and explore what the designers created before you destroy it. I posited in my review that regardless of my mixed feelings towards the game, the soundtrack for Mario Kart World was the best soundtrack that Nintendo had ever made. I stick by that judgment. I was correct at the time. But you know what? Just a month later, and I think that this soundtrack has managed to potentially top even the Mario Kart one. Of course, your mileage will vary depending on how much nostalgia you have for specific tracks and specific games, but either way, holy crap, this is good. For those worried that Pauline's singing will get annoying, don't worry, you can actually turn it off in the options. Thank you, Nintendo. I wish you'd have done that with Baby Mario's cry in Yoshi's Island. We've come a long way since those days. But to be honest, I don't find the singing annoying at all. Maybe because I find Pauline really cute and endearing, but in fact, some of the vocal renditions finally giving lyrics to the songs from 2, 3, or even 4 decades ago actually make me really emotional in the best way. Is it silly to want to cry when you play a Donkey Kong game? Hell, it's 2025. We should have gotten over trying to hide our emotions by now. It's okay to love things. And I really, really love this. I mentioned performance when talking about Astrobot, and honestly that's the only complaint that I can see people having with this game. For the most part, it's pretty much flawless, buttery smooth, everything looks amazing, but with a game that gives you full freedom to destroy and rebuild everything in an open environment, kind of voxel style, but even more so, of course, it's natural to try and find if there are limits. And to be honest, often there aren't. It's possible to make the switch to hardware, therefore briefly struggle if you push it. But you have to really go out of your way, and I think it will be like when kids used to have fun in Minecraft trying to make the biggest TNT explosions and seeing if they can crash their PC because too much is happening at once. If you are just playing normally and as intended, you won't really notice major performance problems. In fact, overall, this is as impressive as anything I've seen in the current gen. A real showcase, especially given the actual hardware of the Switch 2 is closer to a PS4 or Xbox One than current gen. What is 100% certain is this game would not have been even slightly possible on the Switch one, even if technically it did start its development journey on the previous hardware. I'm very grateful that they decided to wait rather than compromise. There's, of course, plenty of other stuff to go into, presentation and gameplay-wise. All the collectibles, costumes, customizations, even two-player co-op. It's kind of limited, but it's fun, and I think parents and kids will enjoy it, or, younger siblings. I'll make a separate video on all of that. Again, it's really too much to cover here. I will say that the modeling or sculpting stuff is kind of weirdly tacked on, and it's the only part I felt could have been better integrated with the real game. For example, making a model of something and then being able to have it in the actual game. I understand that wouldn't actually be possible without an algorithm to convert the voxels-ish to a low-poly object, but still, it means most people won't really bother playing with it much. However, as a kid, I would have spent months just playing with this, working out the limits of what I could make, how far I could push it, just like I did with Mario Paint back in the 90s. It was a good time, and for those that get properly into it, it's a really nice feature, and it didn't need to be there, but the fact that it is will add a lot of value for the right people. So this is already a very long episode, and the first of many, so subscribe if you haven't already. But as a summary, what's my first impressions? Yeah, this is the best game that I have played in a decade or more. It is a 10 out of 10 for me, for sure. Unless there's something that I uncover as I play further and the quality suddenly dips. I can't imagine that happening, though. As I said, I've been reviewing games professionally on and off since the late 90s, and I've genuinely never encountered a game that I felt so confidently positive about. Right now, it's a genuine candidate for my favourite game of all time. As I said earlier, my two favourite games ever are currently Nights into Dreams and Mario 64, but despite how much I unconditionally love them, neither is perfect, and I can point out flaws. So far with Donkey Kong Bananza, I haven't found anything that I don't like. That's not something that I can say with any game in recent Nintendo history. Not Odyssey, not Breath of the Wild, certainly not Mario Kart World. If there was any doubt as to if Switch 2 was worth buying, or if it would ever have a true killer app, those fears are now quashed. This isn't just a once-in-a-generation game, it's a once-in-a-lifetime, and I do not say that lightly. My only complaint is that it should have been a launch title. While prices would still have been a factor, of course, this is a far better advert for the system, and it would make it a much more tempting and satisfying purchase. And why on earth are Mario Kart and Tears of the Kingdom $80, but this one's only $70? Actually, Nintendo, ignore that last comment. Don't even consider raising the price. I'm just saying Mario Kart and Tears of the Kingdom should have been cheaper. Oh, God. After a whole video of glowing positivity, I can feel Cranky Kong coming out. Take it to the fridge. Walnuts, peanuts, pineapple smells, grapes, melons, oranges, and coconut shells. You know, if the English language followed the same tradition as pretty much every other country, pineapple would have rhymed with bananas. Now I need to look up if there are other language versions of the TK rap. Catch you all later. And whoever the insane handful of people are who keep replaying that French Nintendo music video that I made, please don't stop. Keep looping it on repeat. It's so funny to me that there is so much more watch time on a 4-minute song than my actual hour-plus long episodes. And again, if you do want an MP3, or if you want to enter the free prize draw to win those 6 Nintendo prizes, come and join the free members area at linktree/dailyswitch2, linktr.ee/dailyswitch2. Thanks, everyone. I'm off to play more Donkey Kong. Genuinely, I can't wait. Later.